The Rise of City-States, Chapter 7, Section 3. Essential question: how is Greece organized politically? And so by the end of the Dark Age, we discussed earlier that Greece went through kind of like a downfall where not a lot of history was being made, and they call this the Dark Age. So by the end of the Dark Age, many nobles who owned large estates had overthrown Greek kings. This created city-states, and this is much like the city-states that we've learned in like Mesopotamia. Those in Greece were made up of a town or city, and then they were surrounded by the countryside, and we're going to take a closer look at those. The rise of city-states. Because of the geography, the basic form of government was a city-state. And remember what I said about the geography affected travel. People couldn't get around very easily, and so these city-states were formed, and they tended to be very isolated. So the city-state is formed by the city and its surrounding land, including villages. Greek city-states. So the city-states in Greece become popular, or they become common around 700 BC. And they're also called a polis. And this was like a tiny independent country. So think about some of the smaller countries that you've heard of. The city-states were limited in size because of their geographical features, like mountains, which limited people from going from place to place. And city-states varied in size. Some were a few miles square, and others covered hundreds of square miles. So you have about 50 to 500 square miles. They also varied in population. So you could have anywhere from fewer than 20,000 residents to nearly 300,000 that lived in Athens by 500 BC. But Athens is kind of special. It was rather large, and most city-states were very small, a lot smaller than Athens. And because they are so isolated, and because they tend to be very small, especially when you compare them to modern standards of city sizes, you form a very close-knit community. Think about Immaculate Conception and how small we are. And everybody kind of knows everybody. So that's kind of the same thing that's going on in these city-states. The layout of the city. So the center of Greek life was the agora. And it's an open space where people came and gathered, they did business, and they did lots of things. Male citizens would also come and debate about politics and discuss politics in general. And there were also athletic contests held there. So you have public buildings, temples, and statues that were also found around the agora. Last but not least, we have the layout of the city. Now, one of the main features of the city-state was the Acropolis, and this was the highest point of the city. So and it was very protected. So it's basically like a fortified hilltop. And it literally means high city, so that should be easy to remember. And it's used mainly for military purposes because it was at a higher place, and it was very easy to defend. When you're at a higher place, you can see your enemies coming, and therefore you can take action a lot quicker. Over time, though, later Greeks would build temples on these fortified hills, and they became more of a religious place. And if you think about, you're an ancient Greek walking around in Athens or something, and wherever you go, you can always see the Acropolis. So it's like a constant reminder of your religion. So I think that's a pretty cool thing. Anyways, go ahead, make sure that you read this section in your book, add to your notes, and make sure your notes are in Cornell format, and I will see you tomorrow in class. Have a great night.